Hello, everyone. Today is an interesting weekend, obviously, for many, many people. We're celebrating Easter. Tomorrow is tomorrow, and Sunday is Easter. So, happy Easter to everyone who celebrates, and happy weekend to people who do not celebrate. Personally, I do not come from the background of celebrating religious holidays, so I just take it as very nice holidays. Spring is coming or came already, and it's just very nice. I mean, let's embrace every holiday there is and be happy about it. So whatever your belief is about today's weekend, it's fine, because it's very good to have diversity, and just let's be united by love, not by hate, and let's not be arguing with each other and hating each other, but actually loving each other. So that's my spiel for today. Unexpected, didn't plan on that, but it happened. So I consider it a divine message. And today I am with my very, 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 I could say it many, many times, dear client and friend. And she's been with me since May 2017, and she's still a client. People would say, what the heck you're doing so long with your client, right? But actually I am super blessed, because this is the beauty of being a mentor, especially, I don't know, business as well, but spiritual business mentor, because spiritual self-awareness mentor as I am, because I get the most amazing clients. And I could be teary right now. I'm holding my tears back, because every time I talk about Melissa, and I will introduce her in a moment, but I am just super blessed. And I've been blessed all these years, and I always make sure she knows it. And I'm blessed with all my clients, because everybody is incredible who comes to me. Well, of course, right? But right now we're with Melissa, and I am super blessed. And now I have the opportunity to express my gratitude and love and joy of knowing you, and my honor of knowing you and working with you over all these years. We never stopped. We've been working all these years in public. So I'm doing it live to whoever will see it. So hi, hi, hi.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. As much as you feel blessed to have worked with me all these years, I feel the same way. I wouldn't change anything of it. It's it's been amazing.
Thank you. And of course, if the spiritual work did not produce results, especially big results, my clients would not stick around for so long, right?
Exactly.
So by now I say my work speaks for itself, and it's not my work. Divine works through me as a channel. I'm a channel, and it's amazing, because it changes lives. So today, let me introduce you first, and then we will talk about how, well, Melissa's journey. And it's not about client testimonial. It's not. It's about, well, in fact, long time ago, we did the client testimony. We stayed on video, because we just went through everything, and it took us 4 hours. So I had to cut it in pieces later on, because it literally took us 4 hours to discuss all the changes that happened in Melissa's life. And so that tells you something. So we're not staying 4 hours. We're not talking about testimonials. It's not about that. So today we're talking about divine guidance per se, because again, it's an amazing topic, and I do believe every single person on earth should embrace this topic. And of course, that's a big order, right? And I'm not going to convert anybody, but we will raise awareness. So Melissa Valdellon is a doctor of optometry. So she has the vision, right? And the vision is the correct vision. And that's what we're doing here, correcting the vision. If you don't see the value of divine guidance in your life, let's talk to Melissa about it, Dr. Melissa. And she is an assistant professor of health sciences, and I don't even know how to pronounce worked out? Say it yourself.
Herbert Wertheim School of Optometry and Vision Science.
Yeah, sounds ominous. I don't even try to pronounce because usually I would introduce Dr. Melissa, but I wouldn't talk about all this big fancy titles. So today is the public and official. Okay, so we're talking to a person who knows what she's talking about, both scientifically, spiritually, on all levels. So let's start with the beginning. When we met, where were you? Because you already in metaphysics for the 4 years, right? You had your spiritual awakening and you became very interested in metaphysical. You worked with crystals, you worked with energy, and in fact, when we met, you thought you cleared everything and you knew everything, and that's how we usually think, right? It's mental stuff. And so I just smiled and didn't say anything. I let Melissa to discover for herself, did she know or she didn't know. So that's another story. But anyway, where were you in relation to the divine guidance? And we will be also sorry,
Um,
and we will also be talking about divine guidance science. I haven't introduced this subject yet, on recent lives. So brace yourself. Where it's coming. Okay.
so in the beginning, I thought I had a decent connection with my divine self, guide, whatever, angels, God, um, because I was working with energy that I was not obviously physical in any way. I was a doctor already practicing at that point for a couple of years. I had a sure split between what I did in my physical work and what I did on my off time, energetically healing all the traumas that I had been dealing with for years. Um, so, but I was still kind of looking back on it now. I was doing it on a very mental level. I understood it. I was learning. I was attending all these seminars, webinars. I was doing um, some group sessions in person at the time, and so I was getting all these like really cool tools to help me awaken to the idea that there is a force, an energy, something that I could use to help myself on an internal scale or level. Um, but was that consistent? No, it was definitely like work is one thing, this is another thing, and it wasn't any way interconnected at all.
I love this point. You're making a great point because that's how people perceive. I From my experience of dealing and talking and connecting with many people, it's definitely the big divide between quote unquote real life during the week. I go to the job or I have my business and I'm focused on the physical realm and I am not doing anything else because this is my quote unquote real life. But then on the weekend, I can do whatever I want. And I'm very interested in all this woo woo stuff. But I cannot bring, and especially for you, right? Because being a doctor of
Mhm.
optometry, there is no way you can bring woo woo stuff into your workplace openly
Mhm.
and say, hey, to the patient, hey, you got all this energy stuff around you, right? So the patient would be running, complaining, running immediately to the admin and complaining the heck out of you, right? Against
Right.
you. And so, yes, very big divide. And that's how people live their lives. And that's what they think and that's what I feel sometimes from people that when I talk about divine guidance, I get glazed eyes because, well, it's something woo woo. It doesn't pertain to me because what are you interrupting with my time because I am being real. I'm building my business. I'm hustling. I'm doing my work and this is I'll read the book and you don't need to tell me, I'll just read the book. Yeah.
Amen.
And
So, mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
And no, I was just saying, and so that's how it started, where I mean, even where I started working, I was working on the reservation in Arizona and New Mexico. And so, they did have some spiritual aspect, or they were trying to incorporate it. They were trying to fire actually a medicine man at the clinic I was at. But even then, it was still very separate. You had to be referred to see him, and it was still very separate from the health clinic itself. So they recognized it, but it wasn't quite integrated yet, for sure.
Mhm.
So that's how I started. Um, then, long story short, I had to move. I moved back home, and things got uncomfortable. Even though I was living a very good, decent life, um, things were just not great on the inside. And I didn't recognize it in the beginning either. I thought it was okay. I was going through the motions. Um,
Yeah, you
but
had a great
something,
job, right? You had a great job.
yeah.
You had a great living situation. I mean,
Hmm.
we won't go into details, but your life on
Right.
paper was perfect.
On paper, it was perfect. But inside, something definitely did not feel right. And I didn't know it consciously or completely consciously. I knew something was off because I kept looking for the next thing, either another seminar, another mentor, another coach, another spiritual teaching. And so I was continuing to do that. And it got to the point where I was working with someone probably for 3 years consistently. And then I knew my time with that mentor was done. I knew I wasn't done though. And I distinctly remember calling out, praying in my mind very strongly, I'm looking for my next coach, my next mentor, my next guide. And I left it at that. I wasn't specific in what I wanted. I just knew I wasn't done internally. Um, Physically, what it was around was I needed help with my money situation. Um, and that's how that kind of unraveled, where Irina will love the story that, I was working with someone in another business kind of mentorship. And this woman, we had a connection. She realized I wasn't a good fit for her. She wasn't a good fit for me, but she recognized that, hey, Irina might be a good connection, and made that kind of um, opening for us to discuss. And lo and behold, how many years later, I'm still here.
You're still here. That's
I'm still here.
that's amazing. Yeah. Okay, so divine guidance. Back to divine guidance about so did you even were you aware of divine guidance? I know we talked about energy, the crystals, but per se
Mhm.
divine guidance.
I There were glimmers here and there of, hey, that's interesting, or that's different. I wouldn't have called them divine guidance at the time. I would have just said, that's not normal. But I wouldn't have known what to do with it at the time. It would be just like, hey, this person said something, and that kind of sparked something in my head, but I wouldn't follow through with it. I couldn't understand it at the time.
Yeah, because
Um,
people say the same situation when people say, "Oh, it's a for a reason," "Oh, it's for a reason," but then they stop there. They don't go and know what the reason is because, well, we can't blame them because they just don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows everything happens for a reason, but do you know what the reason is? That's the most important thing, right?
Hmm. For
Hmm.
sure. So it would be either a coincidence or some kind of, again, like just this really something that stood out for a moment. And I can recognize that moment. Not a lot back then, but I did. But I wouldn't know how to follow through with it at all.
Yeah. Okay, so we started working, and of course, first thing first. I introduced divine guidance science, right? What,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how was it for you? First of all, divine guidance science, and I do teach that, it's in my
Mm-hmm.
program. Divine guidance science are the way of communicating with divine. It's the easier way because signs are visible, so we perceive them with our physical eyes. That's what we need at this moment before we gain our trust and faith and then go to high levels of receiving communication. But so science is like interim language to communicate, to have a direct communication with the divine, and transition from one very physical approach when we think, oh, something is interesting, but I don't know what to do with it, and I still live my physical life, into the spiritual consciousness when everything around you is a sign, everything is around you is spiritual information pertaining to your physical life. So we're talking about, in fact, Dr. Melissa, she came from no divine guidance whatsoever, as you said, just glimpses into the mastering of the subject, because obviously so many years, very intense work, very intense commitment, dedication. And of course, when you're a teacher and a mentor, it melts your heart when a client, a student follows your directions and does what you asked them to do, and does it with enthusiasm because the results speak for themselves. And so we're talking about mastering now, a master of this divine guidance communication. And so, okay, let's continue with that part when we just started. And how was it for you? Were you
Well, I'll
surprised?
say this. I was surprised, and it's funny being a teacher, a mentor myself for optometry students. I am also a lifelong student myself, and if I am given homework, I will do it. Sometimes grudgingly, but I will do it. So
Yeah,
the ta-
people say don't say homework. I can't help myself. I always say homework because I love
it
homework.
it's obviously not writing essays and creating dissertations. No, it's not at that level, but it is like it's the closest I can say is it's learning a new language, right? You learn with the basics and you gradually build up to, baby sentences, then full sentences, and then comprehension. And that's what it was for me. So in the beginning,
And then
working
you speak
with
fluently.
and then fluently, still working on mastery. Like it's going to continue, but it's definitely easier now, how many years later, than in the beginning when I just had, like, oh, this is the letter A and this is the letter M, right? Versus, hey, I can say a complete sentence and understand it and communicate it with others as well. So in the beginning, it was hard, just like any new language. And it it was a struggle because I was still learning it on a very mental level. I would always question, doubt, like, hey, I saw this t-shirt or I saw this sign. It kind of stood out to me, but I don't know what it means. Maybe it means this or that. And then eventually I could recognize patterns, um, that where this particular thing, maybe it's a bird or a feather, now I can really associate it with that meaning because it means that to me. Um, and for me, it wasn't always visual either. Um, I love music, and so whenever particular songs or pieces would play on the radio or on my music playlist, or whatever, that had particular meaning to me. And so what I learned, especially from that, was how tailored or individualized these divine guidance signs are. Because I'd be so excited that I received this message and I'd go to Irina and share it with her, and she's like, I don't know what that means. And then I'd have to explain why it was so important to me or why it made such an impact to me. And then that's how I actually realized, oh, these signs, these divine guidance prompts, signals, there is a global language, but it is still very much personalized. Just like in learning again another language, I I personally learned Spanish in high school and grade school. Um, and then I got to a point where I couldn't go any further. Now, worked in a population where I worked with people from when I lived in Miami doing some work there. Um, I could understand the Spanish, but we had different dialects, right? So that's kind of the way I think of it. Like the music part is a different dialect that pertains to me, but then we have this global understanding of, hey, divine guidance signs in general mean this way for most people. So that's how I can wrap my hand around it and kind of explain it to others who are trying to understand.
Right. Right. Perfect. Perfect. Well said. Because we have cultural differences. We have intellectual, and educational, you name it, differences. So I usually say what something means to me, it not necessarily mean to you the same thing because of your differences. So you have to figure out, I'm not imposing, I could teach you, and I do teach the mechanical meaning of the science. I teach how to to take it or discern the meaning, but then you have to apply yourself and to your context. We always take a context. And so that means it's the language. We take several signs, put them together, apply them to our personal life, and then we see how the picture is, then we get it out. So it's not mechanical and it's not superstitious thing, and it's not anything scary, woo-woo, unpractical, you name it, right? Because, and I always say, I did not invent the science per se, but I did invent the or did was introduced from above the system of that, to the system how to learn it and reinforce it and learn it and apply it to your situation. So talking about that, I believe in practical application. Reading books on the weekend about divine guidance science is perfect, or divine guidance. I don't even know if there are books on divine guidance science. I don't know. We'll see
Mhm.
one day. But how about the practical application? So let's talk about practical. Is it practical for you? Why do you think you needed to learn it? Because at the beginning, I'm sure you like, why am I learning it? I have no idea, right? It still was separate. So how is it now?
Right now, it's just so integrated in my day-to-day activities. It has, it's become, it not become practical. It is a very practical application to um, learning about this because now I can go through my day-to-day um, knowing that, for one, I'm connected with something bigger, grander, greater than I am, and I can rely on that bigger, grander, greater connection to guide me through my day to day.
And
Um,
how does it feel before you continue? How does it feel to be that connected? You know you're connected. How does it feel?
there's a kind of reassurance and security, and honestly, like I'll say there's not panic and crazy energy that I know before. If something happened, I'd go all mental and anxious and worried and stressed. And that is not my reality anymore. Yeah, things come up that it's still a lot of work to deal with, but nowhere near the stress levels because I know, hey, this thing, coming back to it, it happened for a reason for sure, maybe, but even if it happened for a reason, I know I am going to be given a way out of this situation.
And you know the
If
reason, and
um,
you will know the reason.
and I will know the reason because the signs are there to show me how to get out of it and why it's happening. And applying it all together just gives more meaning to my life too. Um, so it's become a journey of, rather than waking up, eating breakfast, going to work, coming home, rinse and repeat day after day.
Going through
Now it's
motion.
more going through the motion. Now it's more like, okay, for me, waking up, okay, what am I working on today? How can I do that in the best way possible for me, for everyone around me? Um, and it's by it's become this two-way connection or two-way communication where I'm not just asking for something and hoping something good happens. I know something will come out of me asking because I get that sign back. Not instantly, often, sometimes yes, but just being open to receiving has also made a big difference for me.
And
Um,
you always tuned into the spiritual side of things. How about that? Because you used to be, you were always tuned into the physical reality, as we say, business hours, work hours, I'm in the physical, and also generally in life, I'm in the physical.
mhm,
But now it's
mhm,
entirely different story, right?
mhm. So back to the question of how is my life? How do I feel? Again, yeah, I know I'm connected. I know it's always present that I'm always going to be guided. But there's this, I like to call it as a warm, fuzzy blanket feeling. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's less apparent, but it's knowing that's my knowing that I am always going to be connected
Vivo
and
is
I hope
so
for my
loud. That's
I apologize, my cat.
Melissa's cat, and he's actually speaking out loud. So there is something
Yes,
here. There is a message coming through the cat.
yes. Speaking of signs, he wants up. Um,
Well,
he
let
sorry.
him get up. No?
No.
Yes? Okay.
Um, where was I going? Yeah, it's thanks, Vivo. Now I forgot what I was saying.
It's okay. I'm
Um,
interrupting a lot.
no, that's okay. Oh, sorry. Here is the cat.
He wanted to be a participant.
He
Oh,
did.
he's
He did
so
want to
cute.
participate.
He's so cute. And we also get messages through cats. We also get messages through all kinds of animals because they always mean
Hmm.
something, and they always, if a person or a cat or anything or some object comes and glows at me, I do believe that's why I'm making this big fuss about Vivo, because he made his presence actually known right now. He rose his voice. He raised his voice. So I think that's an interesting moment because a lot of women entrepreneurs are talking now about finding your own voice, speak on the internet, right? Speak out in public. People are afraid, people are cautious about haters. And recently I was talking to somebody and she said, I've been so afraid of haters to be out and speak out. And so Vivo is showing, I think that's a message, right? That's a message for women, especially to raise your voice and speak. That's what we're doing now. We're raising our voice because these beliefs are sacred to us. They're very sacred. And I found that I was reluctant for a very long time to share my knowledge, spiritual knowledge, with the world. And my clients have been the same. They would say, okay, what do I say to people? What do I do? The change is tremendous. We're working nonstop. We're creating great results, but then we cannot even explain it to people because, again, people are very focused on the physical and it's all mental. And it's very hard to explain what you do and how your life changes, right? So I'm using this moment again as a teaching point to explain, raise your voice, and it's okay. Here goes Vivo of light colors saying, hey, light is here and light is coming to the earth, speak up. What do you think? Was it a good interpretation?
I agree. No, he was very insistent on wanting to be here. And I kept saying no, and now he is the happiest furry cat. And yeah,
And
he
he's
just
on the
needed to be
camera.
heard. And
Yeah,
he's on camera. He's usually not on camera either.
right. He's not. Usually he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it works. We take any moment that happens and we interpret it to the best of our abilities by applying in the context. What is it right now that's happening? So that was a little mini case study for to show how divine guidance science works. And I would like to ask you something. It's, of course, it's not scripted. We did not plan on it. We did not prepare. We did not have any specific questions. I do it live, jump on live, talk to the person, and be done with it, because that's just how I do it. And Melissa, I'm wondering if you can give us an maybe I will put you on the spot. Sorry about that. Anything, any example that you use the science, you use divine guidance in a particular situation. We don't need to big story. You have big stories. We call them miracle stories. In fact, I we just had summit done, mega summit, and I named my interview my story. I said my miracle story. Actually, it's thanks to Dr. Melissa because she said, "Oh, Irina, it's a miracle story. I want a miracle story myself." And since then, she manifested her miracle stories. So for us, it's not a big deal anymore. But that's how it started. So that's why I said it, miracle story. But we don't need right now miracle story. We just need some maybe small example of something that you had those signs, had divine guidance, and something happened. Any you could think of? Because there are so
Most,
many.
I know there's so
Yeah.
many, and now I can't think of a lot of them. But I think the most practical, again, for me, most recently was n- not necessarily a sign, but a knowing
Divine
that,
guidance.
yeah, it was a guide, it was guidance to reach out to a couple people. Um, the context is I had just given a lecture at the school, and ow, now, sorry, now he wants to need my leg. Um, so I had given a lecture at school. I was done. I asked, hey, divine guidance, what's my next step? Again, left it at that. And then a couple days later or a day later, I got a feeling I needed to contact a couple people I knew, um, from who I worked with in the past. And I reached out to them. They in turn told me a couple things that in turn led me to contact someone else. And work wise, that means I have an opportunity now to potentially speak at other locations in the not so near future or near future within the year. Um, so that's how following this one bit of guidance opened up opportunities in my work life, um, that can lead to even bigger, better things down the road. So that's the most practical instance lately, or bigger instance lately that I can think of.
Right. And to dissect it a little bit, we won't go very much into details, but so first you got that feeling. So how was it? How to it's called, right? How to. Let's teach here.
Hmm.
What was it?
It was just a random thought, fleeting really, but it persisted because I didn't act on it right away. Like, hey, I haven't talked to these people in a while. It's been half a year. I should reach out to them.
So how
And then if I,
persistent? How long? How persistent?
it lasted, it would just be that moment of thought, but it came a couple times, like maybe three, four times
When did you
in a
recognize
couple
it?
days.
Immediately
Uh,
or later after three times?
After a couple times.
Yeah, yeah,
I
because
think I
we have a
recognized
lot
it
of
the first.
thoughts. Right. So first we just know because you were aware that that thought happened, but you didn't act on it,
Mm-hmm,
and rightly so, because who
mm-hmm,
knows? It's just whatever. But then
Yeah,
when it persists, so here is a teaching point for everybody. When it persists, you thought about it the second time. And then you thought about the third time. Well, you have to notice the pattern. And that's what Melissa has done. She noticed the pattern. And then what?
right. And to say again, it wasn't loud, it wasn't obnoxious, it wasn't demanding, it wasn't like, hey, I have to talk to these people right away. It was the suggestion of reach out. And again, it wasn't in those words, it was just a feeling like, oh, I should reach out. But
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Um, so then I reached out. I just texted them, caught up, said hi
How fast did they respond?
really fast.
That's another point, teaching point, right?
Yeah.
So when divine gives you a suggestion, the idea, and you receive that idea, then you have to follow up, right? You have to take action because we are in a physical reality. So you took that action of texting, but when divine guides you, divine will provide. So you don't need to struggle and try to find these people because remember, a lot of people will be forcing and pushing and trying to get to these people because it's hard to get to them. They're busy. They're screening. They're secretaries and so forth. They're screening as well. And here you are, texted, and immediately you got very fast response. So that was another
Hmm.
sign of divine guidance helping you along the way.
Hmm. For
Then what?
sure.
During the conversation, how did you feel?
So during the conversations, I felt good. So what I was doing, I was pitching the idea that, hey, maybe I should lecture. They're all ready and supporting me, but they're not the ones in charge. I should talk to this other person. And so I knew I resisted for a little bit because knowing this individual, she's very busy, she's very high up, she's very brilliant. I've never really interacted with her directly in any situation, so it was a little intimidating to do that. So I sat
So
on it
that's
for a
another
night.
teaching point. That's another teaching point. Resistance will come up because resistance is always there to keep us safe, quote unquote, in a status quo. But we
Hmm.
want to move forward because to move forward means more speaking opportunities, more exposure, right? And exposure can be scary. And so resistance is another thing you have to recognize on this way. So I'm teaching you the points here, not you, of course. Melissa knows it, everybody else. So, okay, resistance, you dealt with resistance. Then what? You reach out, right, to that person.
So backing up, I resisted, but I also prepared because I knew there was no doubt I had to reach out to her. Like I
So it was
couldn't just
in
let
a
this
knowing,
fall.
in a knowing.
Yeah, I knew I had to reach out. I couldn't not follow through with this. So yeah, I resisted reaching out to her right away, but I also prepared. Um, and so when I did reach out to her the next day, I proposed whatever I needed to propose. I sent her all the credentials. And honestly, Irina, in the next hour, she's like, text me. And I did. And then we did a little back and forth because then I got busy with patient care and then she had a meeting. So it took 2 hours of more resistance to clear. And then we talked, and then it was
Seriously,
such
she
a
said
flow.
it took some time, 2 hours. We're not talking
Two
days, we're
hours.
not talking about months, we're talking about 2 hours, people.
It was 2 hours, and it was the easiest conversation I've ever had with, someone I looked up to professionally. Um, and she gave great feedback. We had a conversation. Essentially, she opened up doors for me and said, if I'm willing to work with her, she's willing to work with me. Let's approach it this way. And yeah, now I have work to do for the next 6 to 12 months, but the opportunity is there and it's going to grow and she's going to help me. And it all took from reaching out literally like 3 days before, 4 days before to other people.
Mhm.
So it was not a short amount of time.
Well,
Sorry,
hold on
sorry,
a second.
not a long amount of time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Short,
Sorry, sorry.
nothing. Yeah.
Um, but that's how it just for me it was recognizing that I had to follow through with this versus before I would say, "Hey, this thought keeps coming in my head, but I don't know what to do with it."
All
I would
right.
have probably just stopped after contacting my friends and just said, "Hey, I did this thing," and then leave it, right?
And how
Before.
many people have done it
Yeah.
this way and didn't have the best results that you could possibly have because they were not connected, they were not feeling supported, they didn't see the magic, didn't feel that magic, and didn't take action, so forth. So that's the mastery when we take divine guidance and take that brilliant idea that comes from the divine and take move it into the action, and then we get results that we didn't even expect. They're usually bigger and better results than we usually can even imagine. Because I know Melissa wanted maybe just one place to speak, and suddenly the conversation was about like a big global approach, right, with all kinds of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is the teaching point that divine, when divine guides, divine provides, and the results, if you follow that easy path, it's an easy path. Even though we take work, we make it happen, but it's the guidance. So it's divine guidance and green light flow, I call it. And Melissa knows it very well, and she has mastered this amazing subject, and that's the result. So we showed to you, we a little bit longer than expected, but I'm very happy. Melissa is busy, she has to go, but I'm very happy that we did it because that's how it works for us. Okay, thank you so much. The result is speaks for itself, right? And I would like to invite everybody, if you're a woman entrepreneur who identifies herself as spiritual or interested in metaphysics, um, to join us in a 3-day virtual live event. It's called Radiant, full of light, shiny, right? Radiant, the journey home to inner freedom, peace, and power, and it's $97 at this point. The price will go up to $197. There are bonuses if you sign. So please go to radiantmastery.com no forward, radiantmastery.com. I got used to other forward slash. And join us. It's May 2nd through the 4th, and divine guidance will be there prevalent in that event, and it's a spiritual way of bringing spirituality into your business and life, and how to find who you are, find your voice, know your purpose once and for all, stop doubting about all that, and have a complete transformation that will serve you for the rest of your life. So join us at radiantmastery.com. Thank you so much. And thank you, Melissa. Dr. Melissa Valdellon.
Thank you. This was fun.
This was fun, right? It is fun. I love
Mhm.
it. Bye.
Bye.